This episode of the Mal Report is brought to you by Malcare. Learn more about Malcare at malcare.com. You've heard me talk about Malcare before, but they're back with some interesting updates. Not only are they the WordPress plugin with instant WordPress malware removal, well, let me read some of these features. Deep malware scanning. They know about malware that other plugins don't. Number 2, that one-click malware removal process makes it super easy to remove from your WordPress website. And number 3, a new feature called Autobot Ultra Defense System. Okay, I made that Ultra Defense System part up, but get this, it automatically blocks the bots hitting your website. So not only does that protect your website, but in the long run, it'll improve speed of your site from not letting those bots through the doors. Check out Malcare at malcare.com. That's malcare.com. I don't want to be a malware specialist. You don't either. Check out malcare.com. Thanks for supporting the show. This episode of the Mal Report is brought to you by Newsletter Glue. Find it at newsletterglue.com. Build and publish newsletters inside WordPress for serious online writers. Publish newsletters like you would a blog post in WordPress. Save hours and get more readers. Newsletterglue.com. You can find the free version if you search in the WordPress repo for Newsletter Glue. It's going to take on Substack head-on. So if you've not heard of Substack before, this is that very popular email newsletter publishing platform. You're sort of locked into that platform. You can kind of sell your membership stuff, but you don't really own this. It's sort of this rented land thing. If you want to own your newsletter, if you want to make publishing a podcast with a newsletter easier, you're selling things, you're selling digital content, Newsletter Glue glues that content to your favorite emailing platform. Just makes life super easy. I love it. I use it at thewpminute.com. Makes my life so much easier. For $76 a year for one website, all the way up to 25 sites for only $372 a year. Newsletter Glue is a fantastic value. Beautiful UI, wonderful support, and hey, one of the co-creators was actually a guest on the Mal Report before. So check it out. Newsletterglue.com. That's newsletterglue.com. Today I'm experimenting with a new type of podcast episode called Play It Forward. I'm borrowing this concept from a show called 3 Clips that we produce in my day job, Castos. In that show, the host, Acunzo, asks his guest to play it forward by recommending another podcast that they should absolutely, the listener, should be listening to. I'm excited to do the same today by sharing 3 clips, okay, another thing I'm borrowing from our show, by sharing these 3 podcast episodes with you today. So how can you take part in playing it forward? Number 1, go check out the podcasts that I'm highlighting today. They're definitely worth subscribing to. They're definitely worth listening to. Number 2, share these links to the episodes on social media. Number 3, say thanks to the hosts and guests that I highlight today. Putting a podcast together isn't easy. Go tell them they're doing a great job. I pulled these clips out because they were either really solid business advice, painted the picture of what it's like to be an entrepreneur, or illustrated real clarity to an upcoming goal. You're listening to the Mal Report podcast for the resilient digital business builder. Subscribe to my newsletter, malreport.com/subscribe, and follow the podcast on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Better yet, please share this episode on your social media. We'd love more listeners around here. Okay, here we go with clip number 1. Clip number 1 is from the WPCoffeeTalk.com podcast. This is an interview led by Michelle Frechette, interviewing Bet Hannon. And I thought this was a fantastic episode. And more specifically, when Michelle asks the question, what's the one thing you wish you learned earlier in WordPress? It brought back some very interesting memories of running my own agency. Here's the clip.
What's something that you wished you had learned earlier in your WordPress journey that would have made life a little easier?
I really wish I had understood more about how to value my time, my team's time, and pricing. Mm-hmm. And I came into doing this with a little bit of a foundation in business. My grandparents ran a retail; they ran a little grocery store, and so a lot of some of the business things and dealing with clients in some ways, some of those values and kind of stuff that I came with that. But pricing products like groceries and pricing services is really different.
Yeah, it really is.
There's such a range, and it's just a different thing. And so I really wish that I had understood how that worked. And then that, as you gain skills and experience, whether you're a freelancer or you're working on a team, all of that, as you're gaining experience, you're doing things faster, you're doing things right the first time, and all of those are of value to the client. You should be I mean, it's a value-based kind of proposition, so raising your price. But it's hard to do that sometimes, you know?
It is.
So I think we're finally, I mean, our agency is really, in some ways, kind of just in the last 3 years, you know, out of 12, making that, you know, it's like turning an aircraft carrier sometimes, you know, it's going to take a while.
Can't do it on a dime.
No, for sure. And then, you know, I hadn't really thought too. I guess I had thought about it once in a while, but I had a talk with a guy here locally that in a tech, you know, as you're meeting people in other tech, outside WordPress, you know, other tech stuff. And he said, he's a CEO of this thing and da-da-da. And he said, I would just be raising the price every year until they, you know, then you weed out some of the people, you know, that are problem and just looking for the cheapest thing and till you get pushback for sure. Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't know. We'll have to see how that all goes, but we certainly hadn't for a long time raised prices for our existing customers. So.
Yeah, that's how I was when I started out freelancing as well, and quickly learned that I couldn't keep up the pace that I needed to turn out the work at the price that I was charging people. So it definitely, you have to find that tipping point for yourself, whatever that is.
Well, yeah, and in terms of pricing, you know, just sort of like really becoming more of an agency and then getting our folks to full time and then realizing, yeah, you know, if I'm going to pay this person full time, I really ought to offer them health insurance, and we ought to offer an IRA, you know, an IRA, and we ought to offer some other benefit, you know, more paid time off than I was giving. And, you know, it's like, you know, all of those expenses began to creep. And as we're doing more complex projects, then we have more software licenses that we're buying, more services that we're paying for.
It's a big snowball.
You know,
it's a big snowball.
It is. And it's kind of like, you know, at a certain point, somebody said something about, I grew my agency to 15 people. And I'm like, no, I'm not going there.
I don't blame you.
It's like, I'd rather do a bunch of part-time, I think, I don't know, today I'm saying that, you know.
Here we are with clip number 2. And speaking of running an agency, oh man, there's so many lessons to be learned from running a WordPress agency. In the next clip from the Women in WP podcast, hosts Angela Bowman and Tracy Apps interviewed Tori Capistron to talk about some of the lessons that she learned running an agency, finding value, hiring, firing, doing things your way. I loved it. Listen to this clip. Share the episode.
So this definitely brings us to a big question as you're talking about building a site for yourself, building a site for your husband's business. Other people saying, oh, you did that. Will you do it for me? But there's a huge transition that you made from being this kind of solopreneur, charging $200 for a website, to being an agency with employees. How many employees do you have now? And how long did it take you to make that transition? And what challenges did you face? What advice would you have for people in doing that?
Yep. So we have a core team of 4. And then we have a couple really key contractors that they know how we work and they know how we do it and our protocols in and out. So I consider them core team members, but I've tried to hire them and they're like, no, I want to be my own boss. So they're wonderful, but core team of 4/6. And I would say last year, which was 2020, was the year that I told myself I wouldn't swear, but it's like, just like my normal thing. So I'm having to find other words for things. But 2020 was the year that we figured out a lot of hard lessons. I'd say that we grew a pair last year about like in a lot of ways. We grew a pair when it came to deciding that a new hire was not going to work. And we figured it out like within a week, and we hung on for another week. And then we cut the cord, right? Like 2 weeks, we're in and out, and we're not going to spin our wheels. We're not going to waste the time if it's not the right match. We shifted away from nonprofit work and we offboarded that sector to an agency that is structured to work very well with nonprofits, which we are not. So we were like learning these really hard lessons and then accepting the lessons last year, because that's the other hard part. So I would say last year was when we figured out these are the positions we need to fill. We had a core team of 2 at the beginning of last year. So, that was that way for years before that. So how long did it take? I don't know. We're 6.5, almost 7 years old. I think that the first I would say the first 2 years were basically me operating under a company name, trying to develop policies and pricing, and it was just me and figuring all that out. And then in 2016, I hired a mix between an executive and a personal assistant because I was just a mess, and I had a 10-month-old, and momming is not like my primary strength. So I did not want to be a stay-at-home mom. I needed help with like everything. So on top of having a nanny, I was like, I need help with life. So I had this executive / personal assistant, and that was the most logical first hire ever because it doubled my time that I could be spending on work. And I think that was a crucial first step. That person is still with me and is now my integrator, which is kind of an operations person. That's there's this great book called Rocket Fuel that we use as a team. I'm the visionary. She's the integrator. She will be with us as long as she wants to be. She's my work spouse. So it did take, I want to say 3-4 years before I really figured out that I wanted this to grow so that it could be the best place to work ever. Like before that, I was like, I got to figure out this thing and life and being a new mom and having an employee. And it's just a different game now. We're just different game, playing to win it. Want to make as many jobs as I can make, want to give as many people as possible an opportunity to like be Tracy's, like say, I just figure it out and I am a techie and I want to be myself. So one of our core values here is authenticity. So if you identify as a mermaid, you get to be a mermaid. Like that's awesome. And it's unusual. I love that I can actually be 100% myself in my job. And so I'm trying to create that for others.
In our third and final clip, you'll hear from the new owners, the folks from Hero Press, take over the Hallway Chats podcast. Really exciting to see that the 150th episode of Hallway Chats sort of close one chapter, open up a new chapter, and here's where they're headed with Hallway Chats.
About the time that we were thinking of doing a podcast and about the time we talked to you, a friend of mine in India, who's one of the organizers of WordCamp Mumbai, approached me and said, hey, I want to do a podcast with you about Hero Press people and kind of make it like a hallway chat. I said, oh, really? Maybe this is the time.
Yeah. So what's happening with that?
We haven't talked a whole lot about it. I told him that we were working on this. We've got a bunch of ideas. He might be another host.
Oh, that would be cool.
You know, we've talked about the girls being involved. We don't want to have 4 or 5 hosts and one guest, but maybe we rotate hosts, and 1 week it's Kate and I, and 1 week it's Kate and Sophie, and then maybe this other guy, and
Cool.
We'll see.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm super thrilled to see how the show evolves over time under your stewardship, and to see the exciting new ways that you take it and the way that you support the community and bring it closer together in ways that Tara and I could never have imagined. That's really, I think, what I'm looking forward to the most.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had had some ideas. We'd been talking about maybe a family podcast. I would like to try something where it's literally sitting around the table chatting about, WordPress, have some hosts. So we might try some different formats. I know to get started, we're going to look at some people that you are familiar with in the community, but that are doing some different kinds of things in the community. It would seem that COVID has been an opportunity for a lot of people to start thinking outside the box when it comes to events and meetups and what does community look like and how we can come together. And so, that gives me I'm not quite as outgoing as Topher is, so it gives me a little time to get comfortable with the whole format. But also, I think it's nice to take a look at, just the new things happening.
Yeah. Well, and I know you've been really involved with Big Orange Heart. And so I'm sure that that connection also has introduced you to a lot of people in the community who would be really and are doing amazing things for the community. That would be great to chat with on Hallway Chats.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I've talked to more people during lockdown than I think I did in any given year. But I was initially involved with organizing WordCamp US, so I got into more of that angle, which brought me into helping out with Big Orange Heart, and so the number of people I have met doing things has just exploded.
Something that I've been struck by in years of dealing with HeroPress is what it means to be a well-known person. I've run into communities that are very insular. The Nigerian WordPress community is very large. There are a ton of people doing really great things. And inside that community, they kind of all know each other. And so if you were to ask one of them, should we interview this person? They're like, they've been on a podcast a lot. But you wouldn't know them, And so I want to delve into those communities, and I want to find those people who are doing great things in some other community that you're never going to run into by accident. And try to, connect the strings around the world from place to place.
Yeah. Well, you have such an archive of HeroPress stories that it would be really interesting. Maybe I talked about this. I'm just but it'd be really interesting to go back to somebody who wrote a piece for HeroPress, a couple of years ago and see what they're up to now and chat with them. That'd be kind of cool. Yeah, you've got such a worldwide audience with HeroPress that I think you can take Hallway Chats all over.
That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed the Play It Forward segment. Let me know what you think. Tweet at me, at Matt Medeiros, at Matt Report. Don't forget to click on the show notes and click and share the links of the clips today. Listen to those podcasts. Subscribe to those podcasts. Say thanks to everyone who puts together those podcasts, including the host, including the guest. Leave them a review somewhere on iTunes, Podchaser, wherever they ask. Check out those podcasts. They do amazing work. Podcasts aren't easy to put together and keep it going, so I'm appreciative of everyone in the space putting together WordPress podcasts. Okay, we'll see you in the next episode.